On this episode of System Integrators Weekly, Intel CPUs seem to be having a few issues, so we're going to be looking at AMD systems over many different price points here on this episode of System Integrators Weekly.
Let's go, nerds!
Hello everyone, I'm Brea Thorne. Welcome to SI Weekly. And if you are currently running an Intel 13th or 14th gen CPU, you might be a bit concerned right now with the reports coming out of Intel CPUs bugging out when you're trying to do some gaming or encode video if you're doing video editing. I know I've been experiencing some of that myself. So for this episode, we're going to be looking at pre-builts that are focused on Team Red, while Team Blue sorts out all that stuff. So whatever your budget is, check those chapters in the description, find the one that fits your budget, and we're going to find an AMD system that fits what you got and potentially what you want to do with your system. And we'll do all of that after I let you know this video is sponsored by VIP CDK Deals.
The best place to go when you want to get yourself an OEM Windows license to get rid of that annoying watermark and unlock all the customization Windows has to offer. So instead of paying well over $100 for a retail version of Windows, you can get an OEM key for a fraction of the price. Plus, you can use my code BRE25 to get a nice fat discount off of the already discounted price. Keep in mind that this is an OEM key that gets attached to this system and cannot be used with another one or if you change your hardware. Make sure you get the right key for your operating system. For more information on how to use CDK Deals, click the link in the description saying here's how it works, and I'll walk you through the whole thing. Thank you, CDK Deals, for continuing to support the channel.
All right, a few disclaimers first. This video is being filmed for Monday, the 15th of April, 2024. Any pricing and availability that you see in this video will likely have changed if you're watching it a week, a month, or a few months later. If you're looking for more up-to-date videos on pre-builts, just check the end of this video after you've watched the whole thing probably, and hopefully anyway. And the latest video will be there, popping up on the screen at the end, or just click on the channel and look at videos. It'll be right there. Having up-to-date pricing info and availability info can be really helpful when you're actually shopping for your PC. And the next one is that you're going to be hearing opinions here, and my opinions are my own. They are unique to me and formed over many, many years of PC enthusiasm on my part, including being a professional IT person in many different positions for 10, 15 years. So it's a long road that brought me to where my opinions are now. And if you have dissenting opinions, that's totally fine. Share them politely, if you will, in the comments below, or join the Discord, which is linked in the description below, and share your opinions on the tech discussion channel. And the next disclaimer is that, well, this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not here telling you, I know your specific needs, individual viewer, buy this thing because it's right for you as an individual person. No, I don't know that unless you come to my streams, fill out the form, and then I actually know what you're going to be using your PC for, what aesthetics you're looking for, what price point you're at, what your budget is, and all that. That's what those streams are for, every Tuesday and Thursday. These videos are more of a look at the industry so you can see what's out there, and if something clicks with you, then that's your decision. The next one is very important, so listen up. If you are on the fence about whether you want to go with a pre-built or build your first PC yourself, or build this PC yourself, you should strongly consider going DIY. If you're really feeling like you want to go pre-built, if you're pretty much decided that a pre-built is what you want, this is not me judging that. I've been helping people out with that for years now, and I'm totally down with that. It's a great way to get into PC gaming, and it's also a great way to get into PC DIY by buying a pre-built first. However, for those of you on the fence on that subject, you can save money by building a PC instead of buying pre-built. If you buy pre-built, you're paying for it to be built for you and to get warranty and all of those things, and for it to be tested and all that stuff. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, I do want to make a really quick announcement for you guys that's really, really exciting for me. And it's not just because there's like new iBUYPOWER things, new cases. That's a bit separate from what we're doing, but I just want to point this out. You'll see how this connects to what's going on around here. iBUYPOWER has announced and launched 2 new cases and a new all-in-one liquid cooler. This is the iBUYPOWER Scale Mesh ARGB gaming case, all mesh front panel, room for 360 up top, room for 360 in the front on radiators or all-in-one liquid coolers, things like that. It is a really nice, solid looking case. And then they also released this AIO, the new AIO here, that's available in 240, 360 in black and white. The new AW4, it looks pretty slick. I don't know who the manufacturer is, but this is a cooler that's just iBUYPOWER. And I gotta say that CPU block that on there, it looks like kind of like a jewel. It looks really sick. Really, this case is the one that caught my attention at CES here. And this is the Slate 8 Mesh Pro. And it looks very cool and actually seems to have very good airflow as well, just like the Slate 8 does. I know there's glass right there, but if you look at this from the side, that is protruding to the front. There is space between the fans and that, and there is plenty of mesh to let in plenty of air. So where does this tie into what we're doing here? Well, this is going to be the case, and also I believe that AIO is going to be shipping with it as well, that is used in the system that they shipped out that will be arriving Tuesday. It's going to be the system that is going to be the baseline, the system we modify throughout pre-built, rebuilt. Yes, I've been teasing that series for a long time, and we've been waiting on this, the system from iBUYPOWER for that series, and they are providing that, and I'm super thankful for that. It did take a while to get going, but that's the thing. We wanted to do it right, and that thing's arriving Tuesday. And if you want to see how this thing can cool right here, this case, then you should be here on Friday at around 6 p.m. Central. We're going to be unboxing it, testing it, doing all the stuff. And those tests are going to be the baseline that we use to do a before and after all the modifications and everything, and see what we did through our modifications throughout the series, pre-built, rebuilt. So I get this, unbox it, and test it and everything. And then I can finally start production on pre-built, rebuilt. I am way too excited about this. So please be here on Friday. It's going to be a huge day for me, for the channel, for us. So I'm really excited about that. And yes, you can get systems already in this and the other Slate 8 case. And also you can get the new AIO and everything in some system configurators that they have that are specific to those cases, and you can build your PC in them. The RGB line here, the RGB stripe here is just really, really nice in person. It looks excellent. So also this case features, I know it's $99, but it does have some premium features to it. Plus it actually has a height Nexus mini hub, which allows you to connect some other stuff. So it's going to be really, really cool for that if you're getting into some of the height RGB stuff, which is insane. Really exciting stuff. But be here Friday, and I don't know. Let's do this together. It's going to be a lot of fun. With all that being said, let's talk about Intel right now. I'm currently running an Intel Core i9 14900K. And for a little while now, sometimes when I go to export videos out of Adobe Premiere Pro, they don't happen. It just stops. I've been noticing that. It's been really frustrating for me. I don't get to do a lot of gaming, so it's hard for me to say whether I would have been experiencing the same issues with games freezing. But I can confirm that I've been having some issues with video editing and, you know, actually exporting those videos. This apparently has become kind of a widespread thing where people with higher end Intel 13th and 14th gen CPUs have been having game crashing issues, messages like out of video memory, crashing to desktop, stuff like that. Generally, it's just the stuff you don't want to happen. Have been happening to a lot of people with higher end 13th and 14th gen Intel CPUs. It's become serious enough to where Intel is actually responding to that. And their response is to say, we're looking at it. We got you, probably. Maybe. Check back later. So probably not the swooping in and saving the day kind of response a lot of Intel fans were hoping for, but it is what we've got so far. I will say this. Thankfully, NVIDIA decided to step in, and NVIDIA's contribution to this whole conversation was to say, hey, those of you who are having problems with your Intel CPUs and game crashes, please just call Intel, talk to Intel, email Intel. It's not us, it's them. we are perfect. In this article on Tom's Hardware, basically pointing out that NVIDIA is pointing out the problem and pointing everyone at Intel. So thank you, NVIDIA, for that contribution. Now, one helpful bit of the article here is where they point out that Rad Game Tools posted a tutorial on something that does seem to work. Essentially, what the main problem seems to be is something that I've kind of complained about before, and that's motherboard manufacturers. It's not the whole problem, but it certainly isn't helping the fact that most motherboard manufacturers, well, I mean, they're competitive, obviously. And in order to eke out the most performance possible and say, hey, you got that Intel thing with the K at the end of it, put it in our motherboard. We'll shove extra power into it, whether you like it or not, if you use our default settings. And that's usually what happens. They go beyond the actual specs. They're not locked into anything by Intel. So in order to compete with each other and make the highest claims for performance amongst each other, they will, they'll shove power into the CPU and push frequencies and do things like that. And it seems to be causing that instability. So what they're showing to do here on Rad Game Tools is they're showing how to use the Intel XTU, the Extreme Tuning Utility, to basically undervolt your CPU, or at least set things to the actual power limit. And the instructions are all right there. I'll go ahead and link the article in the description of the video, and the link for this is in the Tom's Hardware article right here, where you see the little blue words, Rad Game Tools. So this is why I decided, while Intel's figuring out all that stuff, we're going to have this episode focus on a few AMD systems from a few different system integrators. Some that you see here fairly frequently and some that you don't get to see here often enough. Okay, so getting into this, we're first going to look at some Skytech stuff here. And this is pretty easy to do. Basically, just go to just click on pre-built gaming PCs. You don't need to go at any of these in particular in this little drop down. Just click on pre-built gaming PCs. It'll bring you here. Click AMD and click the CPUs that you want. Now, mostly sticking to Ryzen 7000 series, but for around $1,000, either of these is a decent option. But one that I really want to point out is not on Skytech's website. It is not a Skytech system. We're looking at something from StinceBuilt, and this is a ready-to-ship system. So this one is built and ready to go, and this is aimed towards just 1080p gaming right out of the box, any game you want, and it can definitely do it. $12.99 before my discount code. For StinceBuilt, we have code Braethorn, just like the name you see right here, spelled just like that. So that's the price before that. And this PC features an AMD Ryzen 5 7600, so the sort of entry-level CPU for 7000 series Ryzen. Here, let's zoom in on those specs a little bit. This is in the Fantex XT Pro Ultra ATX mid-tower case. Wow, it is Pro and it's Ultra, and it has an X in the name, in XT. So that is, as you know, all gamer stuff for sure. And Deepcool Gamax AG400 for the CPU cooler, perfectly fine for that 7600. MSI B650 Gaming plus Wi-Fi motherboard. And of course, you look here, you've got DDR5 6000 CL30. That is the ideal frequency and latency for your memory for a Ryzen 7000 series system. Storage is a 1 terabyte Kingston NV2. Now that is not the highest spec M.2 drive you can get, but this is obviously a more budget-oriented system. But this motherboard does have an additional M.2 socket where you can put another drive in there. If you want to get yourself another M.2 drive, you can definitely do that. And the GPU on this is an MSI Ventus 2X-OC RTX 4060, and it looks pretty good. It really does. I mean, it sort of hides the fact that it's a budget system. Power supply is a decent one for sure. This MSI MAG A650GL 650 watt 80 plus gold, fully modular, all of that stuff. So it's not a bargain basement generic power supply. And actually, MSI has for a while now gotten really high ratings on their power supplies. And StinceBuilt offers a 1-year labor warranty, and they will also, I mean, of course, all the parts come with their own warranties for 1 or more years. And so that's basically how they count their warranty. They cover the labor and tech support for the year, and then your parts warranty covers the parts if anything goes bad, and they sort of facilitate that for you. I feel like that's a really great option at around $1,300 minus the discount that we carry, of course, with code Braethorn. Basically, if we were to pull up a comparable system from Skytech, at least price-wise, The only thing you're adding on there is the X at the end of 7600. So 7600X, and it's also not the proper spec for Ryzen 7000 series at 5200 megahertz. We don't know the cast latency on that. We don't know what B650 motherboard's going in there. It just says 1 terabyte NVMe, and generally with Skytech, that means it's going to be a PCIe Gen 3, so it's a downgrade on the storage as well. 650 watt gold. What power supply is it? We don't know. Is that wrong? Is that bad of them to do it like that? No, that's just the formatting on Skytech's website. That's just how they do it. They don't put just all the information there, and that's fine. But with the benefit with StinceBuilt is that you do know the price, and yes, this is a decent amount cheaper as well. Yes, but you know, there are caveats to that. And yeah, but just in case you're wanting a slightly cheaper option with a similar spec, the GPU in this is the same. It's an NVIDIA RTX 4060. So that, when it comes to gaming, is the most important component. And so that means you will get similar performance, but there are caveats across the board. The warranty you get from Skytech is going to be 1 year parts and labor. And on their custom systems, you can extend it. I think you can do that with this as well, up to 2 or 3 years for a fee. Now, let's go ahead and move up to around $1,500, or between $1,500 to $2,000. And what we're looking at here are a couple of systems from iBUYPOWER's Ready Systems, and they're in the LandCool 216, a very, very nice case. These are both sporting the Ryzen 7 7700X CPU. So that goes from being a 6-core CPU, the Ryzen 5, to the Ryzen 7 8-core 16-thread CPU. And the difference between these seems to really be in the motherboard. And the motherboard for each one is different. So you have an Asus B650M Wi-Fi motherboard. Generally, putting in an M-ATX motherboard in a full ATX case, not really my favorite thing. So I'd probably recommend this one down here. It is the same price, but original price, if you look at these, was actually $50 higher. This is going to have the MSI B650 Wi-Fi motherboard. And both of these have the Radeon RX 7800 XT, 16 gigs of VRAM, 1440p gaming all day long, and 32 gigs of DDR5 5600 for both, so not the optimal spec for the RAM, but they both have a 1 terabyte M.2 drive, and that's probably going to mean, if it doesn't say PCIe Gen 4, it's going to be Gen 3, so not super fast. But if you're used to something like a 2.5-inch SATA SSD booting off of that, or if you're used to even older ones like a mechanical hard drive, any M.2 NVMe SSD is going to be like light speed compared to that. So now, one thing about the iBUYPOWER systems, if you want to get $50 off either of these, you can just use code Breathorn right here, because they're between $1,000 and $2,000. That's where you can get $50 off using my name in the coupon code section. And if you're looking at a system from iBUYPOWER that's $2,000 or more, that same code would get you $100 off. So yeah, definitely helpful in this price point though. Now, looking over at Skytech in this price point, there are a couple of systems that caught my attention. One of them is the Omega 2, and the Omega 2 is going to have some similar specs to the one we just talked about in terms of CPU. Ryzen 7 7700X, B650 motherboard, question mark, we don't know what kind it is. However, this gets an NVIDIA RTX 4070 Super. In fact, both of the PCs that I'm going to show you have this RTX 4070 Super. This one specifically states a Gen 4 1 terabyte NVMe drive, and let's see, 32 gigs DDR5 5200, so not the optimal RAM frequency for Ryzen 7000 series, but you do get a 360 millimeter all-in-one liquid cooler with this, and a 750 watt 80 plus gold power supply. Now the next option here is the Eclipse Lite. So you go from being in a Thermaltake case to a Phanteks case. And what you're looking at with this is a market upgrade in the CPU. We're going from the 7700X to the 7800X 3D. Now here's the thing. If you plan on just gaming, that's a nice upgrade. If you plan on doing more than just gaming, like content creation, video editing, photo editing, 3D design, anything like that, you might want to skip over any X3D chips, especially this one here, because it tends to fall a little bit behind on some of those things to the non-X3D counterpart, like 7800X 3D versus the 7700X. It actually is a little bit better than the 7700X, if you're going to be working on any video editing, even light stuff like that. With this also, there's a bump up in the RAM speed from DDR5 5200 to 5600 here. Same kind of M.2 drive, same kind of power supply, and just that solid jump up in CPU there for gaming. If we take this price point though, I'm going to show you what system actually might be my favorite, and this might be out of left field for you. But this is from Starforge Systems, and this is the Navigator. There are 3 versions of the Navigator. There is the Navigator Pro, and the Navigator Elite. Navigator Pro is going to be an Intel CPU, so it's on the Intel platform. The Navigator Elite is actually an AMD CPU with the Ryzen 7 7800X 3D, but that takes us out of this price point. So what we're doing here, we're looking at that $1,500 to $2,000 price point. One thing of note here is the case. I'm not personally familiar with this case. It definitely appears to take a page out of the Height Y40 book, but instead of just copying it completely, they cut off a third of the PSU shroud and put just a fan there. Just one fan down there. There's just intaking air. So if we take a look at the specs here, here's what you'd be getting for that $1,899. This is a downgrade on the CPU, right? Well, yes, and so is it a downgrade on the GPU from 4070 to 4070 Super, but hold on. The 7600X is going to be awesome if you're trying to do 1440p gaming. Now, the RAM here is perfectly appropriate for the Ryzen 7000 series. Yes, the cache latency is higher than what we were looking at from the, say, the StinceBuilt system that we were looking at. It's not CL30, instead it's DDR5 6000 CL38, so latency is higher, and that can affect you a little bit in gaming. However, what Ryzen really cares about is the frequency, that 6,000 mega transfers per second. Now, MSI Pro B650-P is going to have that same like 7 USB Type A's, all of them of the faster type, none 2.0, and the USB Type C connection as well, 2.5 gig Ethernet and Wi-Fi 6E. The case is the XPG Invader X, not to be confused with Invader Zim. This has all deep cool fans and a deep cool AIO, the LT520 240mm, which is more than adequate for the Ryzen 5 7600. You do have sleeved cable extensions and a 1 terabyte PCIe Gen 4 NVMe drive. And power supply in this is the MSI MAG A750GL PCIe Gen 5. So this has native 12 volt high power connector on it. So that's good. This is a great combination of parts. And I kind of prefer this over the ones I showed you from Skytech in a way. I know there's a step down on the GPU. I'm hoping they change that to the Super, and perhaps you can request that. Remember that the whole thing about the Super cards is that some of them were coming in at the same exact MSRP with a boost in performance. I think this just hasn't been updated since those were released. So I think Starforge is on a roll with this. I think this is a good system for that. And you have so much upgradability here. For the next 1 or 2 generations, probably the next 2 generations of AMD CPU launches, you're going to be able to just grab that CPU and drop it into the socket here and have a multi-generational uplift in performance. If you skip a generation, it's a great way to do it. Yeah, that means you're not overspending on your CPU now, considering that AMD is probably launching their new Zen 5 CPUs in like a month and a half. Well, they're going to announce it. They might not be launching it. We really don't know. The warranty that you get from Starforge is going to be 2 years parts, 2 years labor. Now we're going to take a look at some higher end systems. The first one we're going to look at is going to be at the $2,500 range, and that's going to be the Eclipse here. This is a Ryzen 7 7800X 3D, so top of the line gaming chip. Not really meant for a system for content creation or productivity workloads, anything like that. It's for a gaming PC. That's cooled by a 360mm AIO in this Fantex case here. It's on an X670 motherboard with 32 gigs DDR5 5600. So yes, it's not 6000, but yeah, we know. This comes with a 2 terabyte M.2 drive, PCIe Gen 4, and an RTX 4080 Super for $2,559 before the discount you get with code SWARM. It's a really solid system in pretty much every regard, including this 1000 watt 80 plus gold ATX 3.0 power supply, giving you native 12 volt high power connection and all that. It is quite a nice system for the price. Now, if you want to go all AMD though, like AMD and NVIDIA, cool, great. What if you want AMD and AMD the top of the line gaming parts you can get. That appropriately is going to be this really nice looking red King 95 system, which is built into, as you might imagine, the Montech King 95 case. This has a 7800X 3D CPU paired with an AMD Radeon 7900 XTX, currently the highest end AMD GPU you can get. This is 4K gaming all the way. And as a matter of fact, in a way, that 7800X 3D is a bit wasted on this system because 4K gaming is going to be a big cut in frames per second, even with a really powerful GPU. But yeah, now, if you're like, man, I really want that DLSS 3.0, I want ray tracing, I want all that stuff, wait till the next system. If ray tracing isn't super important to you, this system is great. Now, what is a caveat to this system? Well, there's two of them, I think. First off, any system over $2,000 that doesn't have a 2 terabyte M.2 drive is going to lose points with me. I've made that really clear at this point. Plus, the second thing I would say is a caveat here is the 850 watt 80 plus gold power supply. Make no mistake, the 7900 XTX can be power hungry, but the 7800X 3D is not so much. So this is likely just fine, but I would like to have a little more overhead because power requirements are not going down, kind of going up. Still, this is a really top tier AMD system, and appropriately, the Team Red system is in a really nice red King 95 case. I do want to mention a few systems around the $2,500 price point from iBUYPOWER that are actually showing some pretty solid values here, and I don't want to just pass these up. So what you have here is the Ready Y70 Valorant VCTA R002. This is in the Y70 case without the touchscreen. It is a Ryzen 7 7800X 3D, an MSI B650 Wi-Fi motherboard, a RTX 4070 Ti Super, 32 gigs DDR5 5600, unfortunately, 2 terabyte NVMe drive Gen 4, and 240mm AIO. Honestly, wish they'd gone to 360 in this. I feel like a 240 on the top of that Y70 looks a little small and silly. $22.99 for this. And with code Brayothorn, $100 off, so $21.99 for this is quite good. And this is one of the systems that is likely being featured in VCTA like right now. The next one is a Ready Fractal RR002 for $23.99 or $22.99 after using code Brayothorn. And then it's going to be also a 7800X 3D, similar motherboard, a Radeon RX 7900 XTX, which you better believe this is going to beat out a 4070 Ti Super in pure performance. 24 gigs of VRAM is nothing to sneeze at versus the 16 that you get from the 4070 Ti Super. 32 gigs DDR5 5600, 2 terabyte M.2 drive, does not specify Gen 4, so it's probably Gen 3, and another 240mm AIO. And this is in a fractal case, so that's really nice. However, if you go up by $200, I gotta show this thing, and I gotta show this thing in a little more detail because this is an absolute monster of a deal right here. This one's a gaming ready Y40 RG201. This features an Ryzen 9 7950X 3D, 32 gigs of DDR5 6000, and an RX 7900 XTX with a 2 terabyte Gen 4 NVMe SSD, and an X670E MSI Tomahawk Wi-Fi motherboard. Like these are premium specs. These are really nice specs in this. And 360mm all-in-one liquid cooler, very nice to have with that Ryzen 9 on there. And the power supply is an 850 watt 80 plus gold PCIe Gen 5. Not that that's necessary with an AMD GPU, but hey, there it is. I cannot overstate how awesome the specs are at this price. You have the most high-end, expensive consumer desktop processor on the market. Well, I guess there's the 14900KS, but we know how that thing's doing now. It's probably crashing some games out there. The 7950X 3D, where you get a mixture of, you know, really high-end gaming and the ability to do things like content creation, complex streaming, 3D design, Blender, Maya, what have you, things like that. And the 7900 XTX with 24 gigs of VRAM, which is also helpful for those endeavors I just mentioned, and also wickedly fast for 1440p and very, very powerful for 4K. Like, it's really good. It's an ambitious build for a Y40 for sure. It's a gorgeous looking case, of course. It looks awesome. It sort of pioneered this look, which other case manufacturers have definitely harped on and utilized. Definitely a contender here for one of the highest end systems for $2,600. The warranty you get from iBUYPOWER, by the way, is 1 year parts and 3 years labor. I do wish there was a little more headroom on the power supply, considering that the 7900 XTX can be a bit power hungry. And the 7950X3D will use more power than the 7800X3D, but it'll be fine. Just doesn't have that extra headroom that I like to have with power supplies. Let's ignore for a moment the fact that this $3,000 system, $3,090 system, has a 1 terabyte M.2 drive. Okay, it's packing a 7800X3D and a 4090 for $3,089.99 before the discount you get with code SWARM. Good Lord, that's a heck of a deal. Now, to be clear, though, this case is the Montech Sky 2. While it does have good airflow, that 4090 is going to put out some heat. That airflow is going to be pushed to its limit, but I imagine it should be able to handle it. This also sports a B650 motherboard. Because it's a 7800X3D, I'll classify this as just a gaming PC. So 4K gaming at a very high level right here, at about as high of a level as you can get when it comes to CPU and GPU. And this is all powered with a 1000 watt 80 plus gold ATX 3.0 power supply. So you have that 12VH power connector native to it, and 32 gigs of DDR5, 5200 womp womp. But still, the amount of frames per second you're actually gonna be leaving on the table there it's not that substantial. In making recommendations and stuff during the streams, I've actually been kind of avoiding Skytech's brand new shiny configurator for a couple of reasons. I'd like to show you a couple of those really quick, and these are things that I've already mentioned to them and they stated they are working on. So let's take a look at what I've mentioned and we'll come back to it once they've changed it, if they do. My main gripe is that they're kind of stuck in the past when it comes to their memory. These speeds of DDR5 are from back when it was very hard to get or very incredibly expensive. Like when DDR5 first launched, you were seeing speeds like this. And that's okay, but not for something like a Ryzen 7 7800X3D. I feel like it's doing that CPU a disservice. And I would like to see DDR5 6000 CL30 available that is clearly marked as Expo memory, having an Expo profile, which is an AMD memory overclocking profile. Let's take a look at the motherboards. All the selection of motherboards. Well, you have 3. One of them is an MATX motherboard for primarily full ATX cases. Great, very stripped down, very basic. Or you can spend an extra $560 or spend an additional $560. It's either the most baseline motherboard you can buy for socket AM5, or it's really high-end motherboards. What is happening right now with this? It's kind of crazy, but I'd love to really go in depth on this and go through a whole build in a video, do all that stuff. Maybe do a thing where we build a PC in a video and then they build it and send it out. That'd be really cool, so you can see how the process churns out a PC and everything. But as things stand, I'm not really comfortable recommending that you go with a custom system, at least an AMD custom system from Skytech, because you're either going to get a really basic as heck motherboard that doesn't really fit the case, or you're going to get way more motherboard than you would ever need. Well, that's it, guys. That's a bunch of systems right there, from around $1,000 to $1,200 all the way up to, $3,500. And I hope that was helpful for you, because a lot of people fall within that very wide range, and we looked at a lot of systems. If there are any updates on the Intel situation, I'll put that up in the next video. But I want to make sure that you guys do not miss Friday's stream, because it's going to be so cool to finally get this system and unbox it and take a look at what I'm going to be building the pre-built rebuilt series around. This is going to be the system that we're going to be showing how to add storage, change the cooler, change the fan orientation, or upgrade the fans, do all this kinds of stuff. Is all going to be in this system. So you might as well come in and familiarize yourself with it, make friends, and say that you were there from the start. And that's going to be on Friday, currently scheduled for 6 p.m. Central. If that schedule changes, I will let y'all know on my Twitter, which is @Brayothorn, or in the announcements channel of the Discord, which is linked, you know where, in the description below. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for hanging out, and until the next one, take care.